The most difficult and most important thing you will do in writing a research paper is your main research question. And they're not easy to do. So I've taught a lot of graduates, postgraduate students in the US, and I've seen again and again that the main research question is where they really struggle. And so what I want to do is, I can't super help you on this one, but I can do a little bit. Okay, this is my whiteboard here. And so you can see I've got questions about ion, cosmos, um, some just observations and just sort of like hanging around here. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of look at all that I've got here about the world. And then I want to ask I want to ask the question. The question has to be something to do with what my paper is about. Now, in this particular case, you know I've already written my paper, and you also know that I've written a second draft of it. So I've already done my research question. So if I'm looking at all of these and I'm trying to figure out what my research question is going to be, well, obviously it's going to be about the world. And when I look at all of these, I think the question that I want to answer is something like this. There we go. That's what I was looking for. What is the nature of the world? And how does this affect the Christian? I don't know. Let's think about this question for a minute. Let me make it bigger so that we can see it a little better. There we go. What is the nature of the world? And how does this affect the Christian? We need some definition here. We can see that a lot of these statements that I have here are about the nature of the world. So with ion, we have this asking, we're really trying to figure out what is the nature of the world? What is it? Is it something to do with redeeming, saving, or preaching to the world? Is it something about something? And we go up here, we say 11 verses are about the world's wisdom. John has 2 verses about the world's wisdom. 55 non-Paul negative verses about the world. So the world is something negative. Passages talk about the world being sent into the world. So that this part would be about how this affects the Christian. So I think I'm going to change this, not to be how does this affect the Christian, to be what is the Christian's relationship to the world? Now that sounds like a better question, doesn't it? The first question was all right. I'm asking 2 different questions, and that might be a problem. Now, before I go any further in this, let me tell you the rules about a main research question. These rules can never be broken. Okay. Rule number 1. Your question cannot be answered by a yes or a no. All right, so this is really important. Your question cannot be answered by yes or no. So if my main research question is the world something which Christians should deal with? Besides the fact that's a really poorly stated sentence, but the answer is a yes or a no. Okay, that's not a good research question. It cannot be answered by a yes or no. If So here's another research question. Is covenant limited only to believers? Another yes or no question. Never. Your question always has to be something that demands you to have to, describe something, define something, explain something, develop something. Your question can never be a yes or no answer question. All right. So, what is the nature of the world, and what is a Christian's relationship to the world? The thing that bothers me about this main research question, is the fact that it's two questions. Now, it isn't totally illegitimate to have two questions here, because really our main question is probably, and what is the Christian's relationship to the world? But in order to answer that question, we have to answer the question, what is the nature of the world? But actually, in light of the nature of the world, what is the Christian's relationship to the world? That's terrible. That's awful. And you're thinking, why am I going to all this trouble? I really don't want two questions. I want one question. What is the Christian's relationship to the world? In light of the world's fundamental nature. What is the Christian's relationship to the world in light of the world's fundamental nature? Now, you might think, why am I going to so much trouble to write this question? Well, the answer is simple. I am only going to be answering this question in my paper. Let me write that down. Rule number 2. I can only answer my main research question in my research paper. Now, let me explain this. There are what I call sub-questions. A sub-question is a question which must be answered in order to answer the main question. Okay, so sub-questions are really important, super, super important, but all sub-questions are related to the main question. And so in this case, what is the Christian's relationship to the world in light of the world's fundamental nature? Well, I'm not asking what is the world's fundamental nature, but in order for me to be able to answer my question, what is the Christian's relationship to the world in light of the world's fundamental nature, I need to explain what is the world's fundamental nature. So I have a sub-question right there. My first sub-question is, what is the world's fundamental nature? My second sub-question may be, what do the scriptures say about how Christians should respond to the world? A third question may be, are there differences among the different biblical writers in the way they use the idea of the world? In other words, you see what's happening. What's happening is my main question becomes sort of like it's where all of the other questions are going to come. Now, I may have 5 or 6 questions that I'm answering in the paper, but all of those questions that I'm answering must come directly from my main research question. So you see here, this main research question here, this main research question is more important than anything else I do in the paper. So obviously, I can't write a main research question until I've done research. because I have to have all of this stuff, and this took me a while to get all of this stuff. I had to kind of work my way through and battle my way through in order to be able to make this stuff up, figure this out. And so I had to do a lot of research for it. And you know that because you also have had to do a lot of research for it. So when I come to my main research question, I really know a lot about my topic already. Now, I don't know everything about my topic. One of the beauties of a main research question is it often helps you to think of other questions. And once you think of those other questions, this is the beauty of it. Your main research question then makes a lot more sense and helps you to figure out a lot more of what you're going to do in your paper. So I've got rule number 1. I've got rule number 2. And remember, when I say this, rule number 2 is that I'll just make this rule number 3. All of my sub questions must come from my main research question. All right, so now, based upon that, I think I need to look at this and see, is there anything in here? Yeah, well, I can see sub-questions. Well, sub-questions are going to be, how do the New Testament writers view the world as far as positively or negatively? What kind of aspects of the world are important for me to recognize based upon what the New Testament talks about? So we've got what's wisdom, and is that important? Well, that might be a sub question. It might be a sub question. In other words, one of the questions might be, how does the New Testament view the world? And a sub question might be, what negative kinds of attitudes does the New Testament have towards the world? And then a sub question of that might be, what are the negative attitudes we see in Paul? What are the negative attitudes we see in John? Etc. See what I'm doing? In other words, what I'm trying to do is ask lots and lots and lots of questions. And those questions are going to become my paper. And so my paper, then I'm going to write my paper to answer a lot of questions. And the questions are coming from my sub-questions. And my sub-questions are coming from my main question. What do you think? What is the Christian's relationship to the world in light of the world's fundamental nature? So now, all my questions are going to be about the Christian's relationship to the world and the world's fundamental nature. Yeah, I know I really have two questions here, but not really. I don't. I have one question. It's, what is a Christian's relationship to the world? That's the real question. And the in light of the world's fundamental nature helps me to define that I am really interested in how the world's fundamental nature impacts the Christian, that could be my question. That could easily be my question. But I think I like this question a little bit better. Okay, so now this is how you develop a main research question. I can tell you, I've already written the first and second draft, and so I know what my question is, but I can tell you that often when good students sit down, this writing of this question is going to take 3 or 4 hours. Just the question, just the one question, not the other questions, just this main question is going to take 3 or 4 hours, and you can never be satisfied with what you first come up with. I don't think you could ever come up with the right research question just in like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I don't think it's possible, because you need to keep on making it better and better and better. And I'm going to mark it. And so I'm expecting you to work hard on it. Go online, do a Google search on how to write a main research question for help. You'll see lots and lots of advice. This is universal. It's all over the world. The main research question is the most important thing you do in writing a paper. Everybody agrees with this, so it's not like something I'm making up. Your main research question is your most important part of your paper. And I would just add, in fact, I've run out of space here, but that's all right. Let's move this guy out of the way. Come down there. And let's do, no. Let's do rule 4. When I read your paper, because your paper is not going to be doing this because you're not writing a full paper, right? You're just writing the beginning part of your paper. But your paper is going to need to be able to answer this main research question. Not the paper you're going to give me, but if let's just say that whatever your topic is, that's a topic I'm going to do for my master's thesis, my MPhil's thesis. Well, that's great. Your paper is going to have to answer this question. And so what you do, what I would do if I was marking a paper, I mean, I do this all the time. I read your main research question, and then I mark your paper. And when I do this in graduate students in the US, postgraduate students in the US, this is what I find. Often, their paper has nothing to do or just very little to do with their main research question. And so I'll mark the paper. They might write an okay paper, but I can promise you, if they're not answering the main research question, I'll take major points. I mean, we're talking about from a B down to a D, major points off if their paper is not answering the main research question, because that means their paper is not properly focused. Okay, so I hope this helps you. Yeah, there's a lot more to understand, but whoa, boy, this is where it all starts. Main research question is the most important thing you're going to do.